Hello, my name is Michael Fallhaber. I'm the Clinical Education Program Director at CNM. I want to invite you to spend a few minutes of your time learning CPR. It's a life-saving skill set that is important for everyone to know, making a difference in a life-saving situation. Before we begin the skills of CPR, I want to take a few minutes and talk to you about the difference between a heart attack and cardiac arrest. A heart attack victim will be suffering pain to the chest. Oftentimes they're very sweaty, have a hard time breathing, they may be dizzy. If you or someone you know is experiencing these signs and symptoms of a heart attack, call 911 immediately. Get them help, get professional help coming to you. Do not put the person in your car or you yourself try to drive to the hospital. If that person suffers a cardiac arrest moment, they are essentially dead in your car. And it is very difficult for responders to find you. You're going to be panicked and it just doesn't work well. We don't want you to have to pull over and try to get 911 to where you are in your car. It's easier if 911 responders come directly to you. So it's important that you recognize the signs and symptoms of a heart attack, call 911, let the operator tell you what to do, and wait for emergency help to arrive. In a cardiac arrest situation, the patient is unresponsive, unable to talk or communicate. In a person that's having a heart attack, they are often awake, able to communicate, and explain how they're feeling, talk to you about their signs and symptoms. Those are major differences. We don't do CPR on a person having a heart attack, we do CPR on a person having a cardiac arrest. In a moment of sudden cardiac arrest, what we want to do is recognize that this is actually happening. The person will collapse. You may find them that way or they either collapse in front of you. Regardless, the first thing we have to do is establish they are unconscious. We do that very simply by grabbing the shoulders. We're going to shake and we're going to yell and we're going to watch for signs of life. It looks like this. Hey, wake up! Are you okay? Are you okay?
Professor Moore, are you okay?
Hey.
Professor Moore, can you hear me?
As I watch, what I'm doing is looking for signs of life. Signs in life include breathing. Does the person moan or groan? Do they look like they're alive in any way? Do their eyes open? Those kinds of things. If I don't see anything like that, we're going to begin CPR. Before we start CPR, we have one extra step, and that is to call 911. It is vital in this moment that 911 responders come to you. And to do that, you call 911. Modern 911 systems will help you work through the CPR process, but you're going to be scared and nervous, and that's not the time to learn. Now is, when you're calm and understanding what you're doing. To begin CPR, you've called 911, we've shaked, we've shouted, we've watched for signs of life. We don't see anything. We're not checking a pulse. We're not doing anything like that. If we don't see any signs of life, call 911 and begin CPR. To do CPR, what we're going to do is locate the center of the victim's chest. Oftentimes, we expose the chest by opening the shirt. If you're not comfortable doing that, find the center of the chest. You put your fingers up in the patient's armpits. You're going to draw your hand to the center of the chest, and with the heel of your hand squarely on the center of the chest, you're going to put your other hand on top. You're going to lock your elbows, and you're going to lean forward over the victim. Usually the victim would be on the floor. In this case, we're demonstrating this on a table. I'm leaning forward, my elbows are locked, and I'm just going to push straight down. I'm going to push hard and fast. It looks like this. Doing nothing is our enemy. Doing this can help save this person's life. Once we begin CPR, we continue for as long as we need to. If help arrives and you're still doing CPR, they'll take over. The other times we would stop is if the victim started showing signs of life. Maybe their eyes open, maybe they start to groan and talk. If that happens, you can stop CPR. I don't want you to leave the victim. Just because this victim is showing signs of life from me doing CPR doesn't mean that the signs of life will stay there. If I'm doing CPR effectively in this moment, that may be why they have signs of life. It's vital that you don't leave, wait for help to arrive, keep watching the victim. If they become unresponsive again, you simply start over. If we have to do more compressions, we resume compressions. And again, we will do this for as long as we can. If we exhaust ourselves and we have to stop, we have to stop. If help arrives, that's the best scenario. If the person shows signs of life, again, we would stop. And if the victim becomes unconscious, we'd resume compressions. If you find yourself in a public space and there's a victim of cardiac arrest nearby, someone needs to do CPR and someone also needs to get an AED. The AED is the definitive care for a cardiac arrest situation, and we want to make sure it's available to us. That additional step comes into play in a public space. I would shake and shout, I'd watch for signs of life, And as I send someone to call 911, I'm also going to tell them to bring the AED. The AED is available in most public spaces now. They're becoming more and more prevalent, more commonly found in large businesses, schools, airports, regardless, sports venues, those kinds of things. Ask someone to go find one. If it's available, they'll bring it. And this is what makes the difference. You doing CPR and the application of the AED will definitely work to save this patient's life. The AED is very simple to use. The first thing you do, open the case and turn it on. And follow the instructions.
Apply pads to patient's bare chest. Plug in pads connector next to flashing light.
The pads are placed where the arrows show you.
Apply pads. Plug in connector. Analyzing heart rhythm. Do not touch the patient.
It's vital that everyone stands clear at this point.
Shock advised. Charging. Stay clear of patient.
Again, we're clear.
Deliver shock now. Press the orange
The AED
button
will indicate
now.
that it's ready to shock. Verbally, it's telling us there's a visual indicator. I'm going to make sure everyone's clear, no one's touching. I'm going to push the button.
Shock delivered.
And we're going to begin CPR.
Paused. Begin CPR.
The AED comes in several different configurations. We have a training model here. Here's an actual device itself. It doesn't matter. As I said earlier, the first step in any AED application is to open the case and turn the device on. Listen to the instructions.
Adult patient, call for medical assistance. Remove clothing from patient's chest to expose bare skin.
The devices themselves will all talk you through the process. All you have to do is follow the instructions. They've been designed to be as simple as possible in their application to reduce the confusion in a critical moment. You called 911. You're doing CPR. The AED has done its job. It will keep going. You do too. Do the very best you can until help arrives. When the paramedics get there, they will take over. They'll be in charge. You need to be prepared to answer questions about how long you've done CPR, how many times has the AED shocked the patient. That's all you need to do. Let them take over. They're in charge.
Heart issues are all too common. According to the CDC, somebody in America has a heart attack every 40 seconds.
These victims will require assistance by strangers, bystanders like you, who witness the crisis situation and take action.
You may be required to use hands-only CPR to stabilize the person who has collapsed.
Without your assistance, these victims may not survive long enough for the first responders to arrive. Headache, chest pain, nausea, and lightheadedness are all signs and symptoms of a heart attack. So whether they're happening to you or someone near you, it's important that you don't ignore these things. Call 911 and get medical attention immediately. We refer to our police officers and paramedics as first responders, but in the event of a heart incident, the victim's going to rely on you to recognize the crisis and to take action. Doing nothing is not an option.
CPR is one thing, but what would you do if someone you were with started to choke? It's a critical emergency and we have to act now. If the person you're with is choking, they're unable to cough, they're unable to talk, they're unable to breathe. They're going to be panicked. Usually they have their hands clutched to their throat. We've got to act fast. Are you choking? I'm going to help you. I tell him I'm going to help. He may be scared. I don't want him to resist. Come around behind the person, have them spread their feet apart. Put your leg between theirs. Pull them to you with your flat of your fist above the belly button, below the ribs. Flat of the fist goes here. Cup your hand, and then you're going to do a forceful inward and upward thrust. Here, are you choking? Give it up. I'm going to help, okay? So you perform abdominal thrusts until the person either begins to breathe and can talk, or they may collapse in your arms. If they collapse in your arms, you carefully as possible put the person on the ground and you're going to begin CPR. If they collapse, You fall back and do the best you can to get to the ground safely. Not every situation is the same. If you're trying to help someone who's choking and you attempt to reach around them and you cannot put your fist on the center of their abdomen because they're too big around compared to that of your arms, what you're gonna do is bring your fist to the center of their chest, cup your hand, and then pull straight back on the center of their chest. This is also what you're gonna do if you have a pregnant woman who's choking. Pregnancy prevents the abdominal thrust from being done correctly. So again, the center of the chest, flat of the fist, straight back. Also, there's a chance you might be at home alone or someplace else alone. You're eating and you start to choke. How do you fix that? The easiest method is to find a chair that has a firm back. You're going to put the back of the chair in that area, lean forward, and then you're going to drop yourself down onto the chair. That'll help expel the object that you're choking on. If that doesn't work, the fist on the edge of a counter like in a bathroom or a kitchen, put your fist on the edge of the counter, lean forward, and drop yourself forcefully down onto your fist. As it happens, cardiac arrest can be a terrifying experience. You may not know what to do. There's a lot of fear, there's a lot of hesitation. The problem is that doing nothing is not an option. You have got to act. The simple skills that we just covered can be the difference between life and death. You have to engage. You have got to call 911. You've got to establish the process, and you've got to begin CPR. Cardiac arrest means the heart is not beating. The brain is not receiving oxygenated blood. This person is dying. The only thing that could potentially save them here in that moment is you. You calling 911, you using the AED, you using your skills to do CPR will save a life. Not everyone survives this, but the chances of survival increase dramatically if you do CPR.